Welcome back to Central News. This past Easter weekend in Tauranga was an incredible experience of sight and sound for all those who partook of the 50th National Jazz Festival. Janine Forlong was there to catch the mood.
The National Jazz Festival is one of the longest running jazz festivals in the Southern Hemisphere and one of the oldest in the world. And as you can see behind me, there's thousands that have turned out to enjoy the jazz, the sight and the sound this past weekend.
The exciting thing is that the beginning was actually 1962 when a group of 4 young lads watched a movie on the oldest jazz festival in the world, the Newport Jazz Festival, and it was called Jazz on a Summer's Night. And they watched it in an old theatre here, the Theatre Royal, which no longer exists, in 1962, walked out and said, "We want to do something like that here." And a few months later, they've taken out a £50 overdraft on their personal bank accounts and started the first Tauranga Jazz Festival in a public park. Invited a whole bunch of musicians to come down from Auckland. It was quite an eclectic mix at the time. They got about 300 people for their first festival, but it was such a success and such a buzz for them that they kept organising it. And if they had just known what we'd be looking at 50 years down the track, they would have not believed it.
With perseverance and a £50 note, they got it off the ground, did a concert at the Sound Shell in Memorial Park, and it was supposed to be a one-off event, and it just continued. They had so much fun. Musicians came down from Auckland and played, and the local musicians got to play, and it just grew from there, and gradually each year another bunch of volunteers will say, "Okay, I'll help out," and it's just grown and grown. But it's been at different venues in the Domain, and then at the Town Hall, which no longer exists. It's the Eyesight now. Then it was at the racecourse, and it moved to Barretto, tavern kind of place, a motor inn. And now it's at Bay Court and down the Strand, growing into the village. It just keeps growing as society changes.
I think one of the main reasons for that is that it was started and organised by musicians. They obviously were very passionate about having performance opportunities for themselves, and also to meet and mix and mingle with other passionate jazz musicians from around the country. So they had a very strong incentive to do this festival and to create this fun thing for themselves. And very inward looking initially, but then audiences and the public, first the friends, I guess, and families, enjoyed that gathering, and it became longer and longer, and it sort of organically grew out of a very meaningful thing, and that meaning has been retained over 5 decades. It's also reinvented itself. You know, when it started off as just being musician focused, and then very jazz and sort of innovation focused, and then the audience came to it, so there was always a refreshing element.
The festival has hosted some big international names over the years, and it's also been a great incubator for young New Zealand talent.
Because the festival was quite an innovative event in the beginning, it was quite exciting that people like Alan Broadband, who is one of our most famous New Zealand jazz exports, arrived here as a 16-year-old and said, "Can I play at your festival?" And to the organiser, and he said, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "I play the piano." And they said, "Well, there's a piano, play something, show us." He sat down and played, and they said, "You've got a gig tonight." And this guy is now famous, lives in Los Angeles, works with people like Natalie Cole, has got Grammy Awards to his name, and basically came through the festival. So stories like that you find throughout the decades. We've got people like Holly Smith and Nathan Haynes come through our youth jazz competition when as 16 and 17-year-olds. They won their categories as best musician, best vocalist, etc. And other highlights for us, obviously, is now that we are bringing some international mega stars to the festival just to sort of create the icing on the cake. And obviously this year with Earth, Wind and Fire headlining the festival with their first ever New Zealand appearance is just an absolute highlight. Well, I think there's a really good platform there for New Zealand dance. Our youth jazz competition is now also 35 years old, which means that college students that are interested in are serious about their jazz music can come here and measure their skills against their peers. And they also see then, in the same context, if they stick to it and they want to make a career out of jazz or music, that there is one. Because in the evening performance they see the New Zealand Music Awards concert, where established New Zealand jazz artists showcase their skills, and they're professionals and they win awards. So they see there is actually a career path and something to worth working towards. And I guess you try to do something very special for your 50th and you go all out, and then the 51st you just have to reconsider. Yeah. So there's more international people that we would like to see, and there's more local talent that needs to be showcased to the public. There's a lot of excited people here always waiting for Easter to happen, so there will be a wonderful festival future.
Another highly enjoyable and successful jazz festival. Tomorrow we will catch up with German jazz legend Klaus Doldinger and some of the very successful jazz musicians. Well, that brings us to the end of the show for another day. Feel free to send us any ideas you may have either via email or Facebook. Kasia has been out and about in Hamilton today and will be with you tomorrow. Until then, I'm Katrina McKinley. Have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.